I'm going to do a walkthrough of my home theater post-flood. My basement flooded back in August of last year. We had an unprecedented storm here in Northeast Ohio. Unfortunately, my sump pump couldn't keep up with it, so while I had to tear everything apart so they could put in new flooring and tear out the drywall 2 feet up all the way around, I made some changes and I'm very happy with the results. Also, Tim Lee from Legacy Studios was asking me, he had done a reaction to Steely Dan's Asia, and he had said that he would like to hear that on a very high quality music system, what it would be like if it would add anything to it. So part of the reason I'm doing this today, I've been meaning to anyways, is to kind of show him from my perspective what a good AV system can do. So I'm gonna get started here. So again, I rebuilt this. It took me a while to get everything back together. So first thing I'm gonna do is go over to the equipment rack. The equipment rack used to be right in the corner, right down there where those panels are. So when I had the walls redone, I decided to have them built in, and I'm so glad I did that. It makes everything so much neater, and the wiring was a real pain in the butt to get to before. When it was on the rack back there, I'd have to kind of squeeze behind it, which was almost impossible. So now I have access to everything. There's a big open back room right behind where all the equipment is, so I can get right to the back of all the equipment. I got plenty of airflow through there. And if you can see, there's some wiring coming through the wall down underneath the screen because I have additional amplification back there. So let me get back up here. Thing up on top is a Panamax power conditioner. Underneath that, I have my Gustard R26 digital to analog converter, or commonly known as a DAC. Underneath that is a Kaleidoscape movie server. Then I've got a Panasonic 4K Blu-ray player, a Sony standard Blu-ray player. Don't ask me why I have 2 of them. I don't have a good reason. I just had Sony kind of sitting around, so I just put it in there. And then the brains of the outfit that's a JBL Synthesis SDP55 processor with full Direct Live. Direct Live basically takes acoustical measurements of your room and kind of tailors your speakers and subwoofers, their crossover frequencies, their distances, so for the timing to your seating positions. I have 5 subwoofers in this room, and it calculates them all separately, which is really nice. And then down there is a Eversolo DMP A6. That's what I used to stream music. Streaming has come a long way to me since its inception. It's very high quality. You can get very good streams now. I still listen to vinyl too, and I still kept my CDs, but it's just nice to be able to sit here in my chair and just kind of build a playlist on the fly and everything. You just can't do that with anything other than streaming. So it's a great piece. I'm really glad I got it. So that is connected up to the deck up there, the narrower, taller deck. It's called the R to R deck, or rail to rail. The components inside of it are supposed to be more analog sounding, I guess, but anyway, I really like the way it sounds. So that is attached to that, if that makes any sense. So I used to have those kind of, I don't want to say cheap, but they were cheap foam panels in here. One thing, people that don't know much about this stuff, something I really need to point out here is the speaker placement in a room is vital. If you have them too close to the wall, too far from the back wall, it can change the tonal balance of the speakers quite a bit. I mean, drastically. I mean, an inch here or an inch there isn't gonna make that much of a difference, but once you start talking about multiple inches or a foot, or even toe in and toe out, those things can make a very big difference into the sound that you're getting. So you can't just slap a speaker down and just say, I'm done with it. You need to experiment with it, move it around a little bit, in, out, you know, toe in, toe out, and just go back to your listening seat and see what position sounds the best to you. So the ones in the corners are called bass traps. They're supposed to help control the bass dispersion, which is bass is very non-directional, but it can get very loaded up in the corners and things like that, which can help, you know, it kind of sucks out some of the bass or reinforces it too much. So those panels help with that. And also Dirac does that as well. So the panels need to be in place before you run any kind of room correction, or if you do buy new panels and you've already run your room correction, whether it's Dirac or Odyssey or Arc or whatever you're using, you should rerun it after you make any kind of significant changes in the room. So the speakers are my Ariel Acoustic 7Ts. I've had those for nearly 10 years now. They're out of a small company out of Massachusetts, and I just love the way these things sound for music. Their imaging is just fantastic. Their bass response is really good, especially for their size. They don't look like they would weigh nearly 100 pounds, but they do, because the cabinets are 7 layers pressed together. They're very inert, which again makes a difference in the sound quality. You can just slap together some cheap particle board cabinet and it's going to sound like garbage, because you're going to get a lot of internal resonation happening inside the cabinet. There's just so many different things that can change the sound of your room or your equipment. There's a lot to consider. So kind of moving to the video screen up there, that's just a 120-inch 16:9 screen that I got off of good old Amazon. It's just a silver ticket. It was very inexpensive. I may upgrade that someday, but I really don't feel the need to, because I think it gets a pretty good image from my ultra short throw projector, which is right down there underneath the cover. So that thing's what, about maybe about a little over a foot away from the wall, and it projects from the back side there right up onto the screen. One of the reasons I did that is I used to have my original projector was up there where I had that remote blaster now, but the cable the builder put in cannot support like 4K video content. So I'd had to have tried to tear the ceiling open to try and run a new cable up there. So rather than doing that, I just went with the ultra short throw, and I'm very happy with that as well. It's not, I mean, listen, it's not gonna look like an OLED, let's not kid ourselves, right? But for what it does, I'm super happy with it. And I'm more fussy about audio quality than I am video quality, but everybody who's seen it has, you know, said it looks good. Hopefully they're not pulling my leg, but anyway, that's that part of it. So that's one of my 2 monoblock amplifiers. Like I said before, the rest of them are in the room behind that screen wall. So that one is driving this one. It's 700 watts per channel. It's a Class AB amplifier. That thing weighs a ton. And then there's my center channel speaker, which is also Ariel Acoustics. It's a different model line, but the one that would match that is, to me, I just can't justify the cost of a center channel that matches the left and right. It blends in well for movies. I don't notice any stark differences or anything. So, and obviously it's twin right next to it. Then those 2 subwoofers I have up front, those are REL 1205s. They're a 12-inch driver with a 500 watt amp, and they sound really good. They're sealed, which I really like. I prefer sealed subwoofers. To me, ported ones can sound a little too boomy, and they interact with the room a little bit more than a ported sub does. So that's the front of the room. And then I also have some more, those are just absorption panels right there. The other ones are like absorb and diffuse the sound. And I really like the ones with the film reels. I got them from a local company. I'm just outside of Cleveland. I can't remember the name of the company I got them from. There's just the other side. So those do help control with the room too. And people will tell you, and they're probably right, that to do this completely properly as far as sound goes, you really should have somebody, a professional, come in and make measurements. But I'm sorry, I just didn't want to spend that kind of money. I thought the money would be better used for other things. But I'm happy with the way this sounds for both movies and music. I just got my little, look at all the remotes I've got in there. And recently I got this thing away from death's door. I had to completely rip it down and redo everything. But that little harmony is working back again finally. It was a little bit of an effort to get back up to snuff, but it's working fine now. So my front row of seats here, those are, the seating position is probably about 10.5 feet from the screen itself, which is a good distance. And then they do have little, you know, you can light them up if you want to, but I almost never do. Hold on a second. Yeah, so there's a little light underneath it there. So those are my front seats, and then I don't know if this is still gonna be on. So I use that to control my music and several other things. I use a music system called Roon, R-O-O-N, which is really, really good. It controls all of my music, both my local files and streaming. And its radio is the best one I've ever used as far as like exposing me to new music I'm not familiar with. I love my old stuff from high school days in the 70s, but you know, a lot of people say, well, there's no good music coming out anymore. You know, I don't know why, because the radio doesn't play it. There is good new music coming out, in my opinion, but you just have to look for it. If all you do is listen to the radio, yeah, they're gonna play the same 30 songs over and over again. Even like Sirius does that, so you just have to look for it. I'm listening to some stuff that's from the 2000s era right now, and I enjoy it. So those are what I did was I did things a little bit differently. I tried to get the sound, especially for movies, because nobody ever listens to music in the back row there. I tried to get everything good to every single seat. I don't want, like, you know, if you're sitting in a certain area, it just sounds like garbage. So that's the reason I've got 2 sets of side surrounds. One is for the front, and I have also got the Atmos speakers. I wound up moving them. I had them, one of my, I guess, regrets is I had to figure out where these speakers are gonna go long before the furniture got put in, because we had this house built. So those were the original spots, so I moved them back farther. So right now, there are speakers up in the farther closer to the screen, but they're not hooked up. I wound up moving some back closer to my front seats. So those are front Atmos speakers, and then I did something a little bit different in the other area too. So if you can see, I've got 2 back to back. The ones to the right there are rear Atmos speakers that are actually angled, so they emit more of the sound towards the front row, and then the ones behind them are angled towards the back row, and they're front surround or front Atmos height speakers, whatever you want to call them. Is that ideal? No, but it works. I mean, I've sat in every seat in here, and some are better than others, but in all of them you can get a good sense of what, you know, what's supposed to be coming from in front and behind you. You know, like things like airplanes, helicopters, rain, birds, anything that's up over your head. It gives you a good illusion. So this is a 15-inch model of the 2 that are up front. That's also a REL. That is the 1510. It's a 15-inch driver with a 1,000-watt amplifier. That thing will it'll really get up there and shake the chairs a little bit, which, you know, I mean, it's kind of cool when you're sitting there watching, especially the ones that are up on the riser, because they're not sitting on a concrete floor like the front ones are. You can feel it a little bit in the front row. But when you sit in the back, I mean, there's times you can actually, it feels like the chairs are shaking without, and I don't use any of those butt shakers or anything like that. I don't need them. So that's that guy there. And then I put little neon light, or not neon, LED lights above here. They're kind of like mounted under there where you can't see them. I think it kind of looks cool, and plus, you know, it's a safety thing, so that if the room's dark, people won't trip over it. Because I did have that happen once, and I felt kind of bad about it, so I decided to do something about it. And then coming around towards the back of the room, like I said, I still listen to vinyl. So when the walls were open, I had an extra long, high-quality RCA cable run from here all the way into the room where that equipment rack is that I showed you. And it works fine. It sounds good. So that way I can just walk. I'm much closer to the turntable, because, you know, with the turntable, God love them, but you get about 4 or 5 songs if you're lucky, and then you got to get up again, you know. So that's one of the nice things about streaming music. For when I'm feeling lazy, I don't have to do that, but I still listen to it. And I've got a Musical Fidelity amplifier, phono preamp underneath that which sends the signal over to the JBL synthesis. So coming around the back here again, I've got, you know, the other two side speakers, and the speakers, these have like a low bass, kind of a woofer, but not a subwoofer, obviously, in the front of the cabinet, but they also have a mid-range and a tweeter on the side there, on both sides actually. These again are aerial acoustics, and so you can hear these well from the back row, even it's like maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet behind it. And then there are the rear surrounds for that, and again I had to move these because these were just too far back behind them and you couldn't really hear them that well from the back seat. So those are the old ones, and then the new ones are about, I don't know, 3.5 feet or so in front of that, which really made a difference. Then to round things out, these used to be my front speakers, these big Definitive Technology speakers. So rather than trying to sell them and online, which can be a pain in the butt, as most of you know, I decided to use them for rear speakers. And then I have my good old Martin Logan subs, so I have 5 of them. There's 3 Rels and 2 Martin Logans. These have 3 10-inch drivers in each one, and they're, I want to say, 750 watts a piece. So these really, when you're sitting in that back row, you feel those things as much as you do hear them. There's the other one, and then these up here used to be my rear or side surrounds before I went with the speakers I have now, the aerial acoustics. So again, rather than trying to sell them, I'm using those as rear channels too. And between those and, you know, a lot of times when you're listening to like a movie, there's not a whole lot of information that goes to the rears normally. It's more obviously the center channel, the front, left, and right, and the sides. But when a movie utilizes the rear channels, which some do, these things really come to life. So we got a couple panels back here that we're just kind of laying around, so I just stuck them back here. So anyway, that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of it all. I want to put a vinyl LVP, vinyl plank floor, whatever you want to call it, down here, just in case. It's just so much easier. If anybody spills a drink on it or something, you don't have to worry about it. It's much easier to maintain. It's supposed to have some kind of acoustical layer in it that helps with sound reflection, and I think it does a little bit. It's not quite as when I had carpet in here, but that's okay. And that's one of the reasons why I got this I like it anyway. I'm going to call it a really cool rug because I think it is. So it helps kind of cut down on the sound reflection. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. I've been at this it'll be 50 years ago this fall that I bought my first little 2-channel system when I was graduating in 8th grade. Now, just because I've been doing this for that long does not make me an expert. I don't pretend to be an expert. Some people, they want to see graphs and charts and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, hey, that's great. I respect those guys. But hey, the way I look at it is, if you're happy with the way it sounds, you have a budget, you stick within it. I don't worry too much about it. I don't sit here and listen to music or watch movies with a protractor in my pocket. I just sit down and enjoy it and put on some popcorn and relax. I think that's what this hobby should be all about. And everybody's got different budgets. We all started out somewhere. Like I said, my first stereo system was back in '74. It was very simple. My first surround sound was probably around '93. It was good old Dolby Pro Logic. It's been an evolution. It always is. It can be quite a wormhole if you want to go down it. So anyway, I'll end it there. I'll stop my yammering. So take it easy, everybody, and enjoy.